Welcome to Bicycle Touring Talk. It is episode 113. My name is George Schlacegg, and I'm happy to resume this series with the stories of my coast-to-coast bicycle tour across Canada. You may have seen my most recent videos. They were all about having my work truck stolen. The truck is still missing as of right now, and I will keep you posted on any new developments. However, life goes on, and I remain committed to sharing the word on bicycle touring. This part of the tour starts in Moncton, New Brunswick on August 16th, 2017. I had spent the night at my friends Fred and Gigi's house. We all left the house quite early after a quick breakfast. My hosts had some appointments scheduled that day, and I was hoping to cover a lot of distance again, so this suited me well. I found a McDonald's to have another coffee and checked my route toward the Confederation Bridge. This bridge is among the longest in the world, connecting New Brunswick with Prince Edward Island. It is curved and recognized as one of Canada's top engineering achievements of the 20th century. To go coast to coast across Canada, it is not necessary to go via Prince Edward Island. But PEI was the only province I had never been to in my entire life, so this was a no-brainer. It was going to be about 100 kilometers to the bridge following the waterfront after the town of Shediac. Of course, it's never easy to find your way around the city you don't know, so I made a few wrong turns before getting out of Moncton. In the end, I just asked a few people who were all very helpful. My final Moncton stop was at a Walmart for more food. But at that point, I was on the outskirts and knew which way to go. Shediac was very busy with tourist traffic. I stopped at the visitor center to use the bathroom and double-check my route. While I was inside there, a little gray cloud popped up in the sky, and suddenly there was a big, huge downpour. For about 10 minutes or so, it looked like it wasn't ever gonna stop. A little gray cloud. Just gonna wait here till it's over. I used the break to recharge some of my camera batteries while hanging out on the covered porch. It was good timing, because sunshine was back by the time it was done. On August 16th, 1967, the first ever McDonald's restaurant in Canada opened its doors. So this day was their 50th anniversary. To mark the occasion, they had original hamburgers for just 67 cents a piece. There was a huge lineup, but I couldn't resist stopping in for lunch and patiently waited my turn. The ride continued on Highway 133, then for a bit on 16 before continuing along the coast on Route 955. It was quite spectacular to come down the hill and around the curve that went right by the ocean. Traffic was light and the entire ride was a pleasure. Like way in the distance there, if you look carefully over that water straight ahead, there's a huge bridge there. It goes to Prince Edward Island, and you know this water right there, that's the Atlantic. So I have actually accomplished the mission to go across Canada coast to coast. However, there are 3 provinces still that I'd like to visit before I finish this tour. Once I reached the intersection of Highway 16 close to the bridge, I had to make a decision whether to cross into PEI right away or spend another night in New Brunswick. There was a sign for a campground a bit further down Route 955. I was hungry and tired, so I decided to check it out. When the campground didn't show up for 2 kilometers or so, I stopped at a house. There were some people hanging out on a deck, and I asked them about it. Yes, it was the right way. It was only 2 more minutes to ride. When they found out that I had ridden my bike all the way from Vancouver Island, they offered me some eggs and peas from their garden. I couldn't refuse. The campground was right at the shore in a beautiful location with view of the bridge. There was a brisk wind blowing from the water. The lady in the office was very friendly and curious about my bike tour. After I had set up my tent, she came out and asked if I would like a coffee. Hey, so I took her up on it. She also had information on the bridge. There was going to be a shuttle taking cyclists across. I found that a bit disappointing because I had been looking forward to riding the entire 13-kilometer span, but I was told it was going to be way too dangerous. After it got dark, I settled down in my tent. It was quiet except for the wind and the waves. When I woke up, I had just missed the sunrise over the water, which probably would have been quite spectacular. But I had slept really well. It was a windy morning. I had to be careful not to lose my tent or anything else that was light as I was taking my stuff down. To cook breakfast, I moved my bike close to the office building, which had a huge deck with 2 picnic tables. I was able to move one of them toward a corner that was protected enough to allow me to use my stove and boil 3 eggs. I also had 2 sandwiches. While I was eating, the lady from the office came out and brought me a fresh cup of coffee. Once again, I was blown away by the hospitality. The ride to the Confederation Bridge was short. It took me back toward the Trans-Canada Highway, but the trail was accessible just before I reached the highway, and it made for a decent ride away from the cars. At the bridge, I had to pick up a phone receiver and call an operator. I was told to take a number, which was right on the wall beside me, then wait outside and take the luggage off my bike. So I'm at the visitor center of the Confederation Bridge. I believe this concludes my journey through New Brunswick, which means my total mileage so far is 8,688 kilometers. So that's at the end of New Brunswick. I did as instructed, and about 20 minutes later a shuttle bus showed up. The driver was very friendly and told me he had driven many cyclists across during the summer. He also mentioned a group of over 70 cyclists was scheduled to arrive the following week. I remembered meeting some of these people. He helped me load my bike onto the van. I also received a pin as a souvenir, which I still have on one of my panniers today. The ride across was not as spectacular as I had expected. The span had one lane in each direction and a shoulder on each side, which made me wonder what was so dangerous about it. The only thing that came to mind was the ever-present strong wind. There was one other passenger who seemed to be an unemployed fisherman. I overheard that times were tough in that business. He was talking about working 16-hour days 6 times per week for relatively low pay. It took less than 15 minutes to get across. On the island, I first stopped in at the visitor center. It was very busy and I had to wait in line. It was worth it though, as I was given a cycling map and some info on how to find the Confederation Trail. PEI isn't a very big province, but it has an extensive trail network.
Yeah, so here I am, and it looks like I'm all by myself. I think this is the Confederation Trail I'm on. So far it looks good. Got a little picnic shelter here. I'm in PEI for the first time in my life.
Was it gonna be a rough ride from hell, or perhaps something awesome like the trails in Quebec? I'll tell you all about it in the next episode next week. Did you know this video is part of an ongoing series covering the entire tour, coast to coast? You can follow the tour right across the country by checking out the playlist on the screen. Your support is always appreciated, and it can be as simple as hitting the like button. More options down below, and I'll see you soon.